Hello friendos, this is Chain, welcoming you back to Chain of Commander. It is finally the new year, which means 2020 is now behind us. 2020 was supposed to be the year of Commander, but did we get as much out of it as we were hoping for? Well, while things didn't go to plan, I do think a lot of good things came to Commander this year, which is why I'm going to go over my 10 favorite cards for EDH from 2020. Now, this is my favorite cards in terms of not necessarily power level, but held for the format. So you're not going to see things like Hull Breacher, Opposition Agent, Jewel Lotus. That's not going to be on here. And there's going to be no legendary creatures on this list either, just because I think they're worthy of a list of their own. So let me know if you want to see that. And, you know, this is just my opinion. Yours might not agree, in which case sound off in the comments below. Let me know where I went astray with my list or what cards you would have put on your top 10 list. That said, let's get into this list starting with number 10. Coming in at number 10, we have Garuks Uprising from M21. While it might be outclassed in raw card draw by things like Beast Whisperer and Guardian Project, I think the drawback of Garuks Uprising is incredibly fair and reasonable, and it has the upside of giving your creatures trample as well. Unlike the aforementioned card draw spells in mono green that can just draw you a whole bunch of cards really quick by playing a bunch of one-drop mana dorks, this card does require you to start playing threats to be able to refill your hand again, but it also gives your threats the ability to punch their damage through. This is not a card that will shoot your deck super far ahead off the get-go, but it will help you finish games, and I am going to be super pumped to play with this card in all of my Stompy decks going forward. Coming in at number 9, we have the Triomes from Ikoria, Lair of Behemoths. While I would have preferred that they finished the Bicycle cycle from Amiket first, having tri-colored fetchable lands is definitely something that can help improve mana bases for 3+ color decks. You can still fetch them with fetch lands, you can grab them with things like Farseek. They help fix your mana base very nicely, and they are much, much cheaper than some of the dual lands out there. And the drawback of them entering tapped is very reasonable to work around. Nobody likes losing games of Commander because their mana base isn't cooperating. And being able to easily fix with these Triomes is a huge plus. I know I said I would have rather that they finished the Bicycle lands from Amiket first, but I did enough complaining about that in my video from last week. So if you want to see me rant about that, check that one out. But I just hope they finish these in a reasonable time frame so that we don't have to wait too long for the full cycle to be done. Coming in at number 8, we have Soul Guide Lantern from Theros Beyond Death. Graveyard Hate is criminally underplayed in EDH, especially when so many popular decks out there are utilizing the graveyard. You're looking at things like Marin and Muldrotha and Arumi recently came out, and they're all using their graveyard. You better have a way in your deck to interact with that sort of stuff. Now, the best Graveyard Hate comes in 2 flavors. It's either incidental Graveyard Hate, like Scavenging Ooze or Deathrite Shaman, that slowly pick away at graveyards just by the nature of the way they be. Or another good Graveyard Hate are Graveyard Hates that can either replace themselves or be used for another purpose if the Graveyard Hate isn't necessary. And that's the category that Soul Guide Lantern falls into. For an extra mana, you can sack it to just draw a card and replace itself, and just be kind of like a little bit of a cantrip there. But Soul Guide Lantern also does something that very, 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 very few other Graveyard Hate tools do, and that is it leaves your graveyard alone. So if you are playing with a deck that utilizes this graveyard, this is the kind of card you want in it, because you can nuke everybody else's, mess up their game plan, and leave yours entirely intact. Coming in at number 7, we have the remainder of the battle lands that were first introduced in Battlebond that came out in Commander Legends. The first 5 ally pairings quickly became super popular in EDH because they almost always entered untapped. So, seeing Wizards finish up that cycle and giving all the enemy pairings access to the same efficient mana is excellent to see. there isn't really much more I have to say here. Just thank you, Wizards, for finishing the cycle in a timely manner. I appreciate it greatly. At number 6, we have Feed the Swarm from Zendikar Rising. This is Black's first way of dealing with enchantments, but it won't be its last. Wizards has gone on record as saying, red can handle artifacts but not enchantments. It is perfectly reasonable for Black to do the opposite. So this is a fact that we should be seeing a lot more going forward, but for now, it is the first tool we have in Mono Black to really handle those pesky enchantments that could really be affecting your ability to play your game plan. It's a good sign. I'm excited to see where it takes us going forward. Big thumbs up for me. Big thumbs up for me. While we're speaking of thumbs up, you're still here. I'm clearly saying something you like. Hit that like button below to show it. And with that, let's move on to number 5. Number 5 is War Room from Commander Legends. This is card draw that can go in any deck, but it favors those decks that play fewer colors. With the whole format turning into 3, 4, 5 color good stuff, I love this idea of having cards that reward you for playing fewer colors in your deck. Now, this is an easier land to activate than Arch of Araska, and it's more one-sided than Miko Koro. So I expect this card to be everywhere in 1 or 2 color decks across EDH, especially those colorless decks where it's essentially free draw, if you pay the mana. Now, like I said, I like these effects that reward players for playing fewer colors. So another card that was competing for this spot was Commander Plate, also from Commander Legends. But I felt like that one was just kind of more of a bigger, clunkier Lightning Greave. So War Room, much more useful of a card. Very excited to see this one enter in the format here. Coming in at number 4, we have our first white card, Keeper of the Accord from Commander Legends. White has historically had issues with card draw, card advantage, ramp, and just general resource acquisition in a format where acquiring resources really determines who is the victor. Starting with Mangara the Diplomat earlier this year, Wizards decided to kind of incorporate a new way of White getting to fill in those blanks, where it relied on your opponents doing things for you to get the benefit. And Keeper of the Accord continues that thought process going forward, where you get the benefits based on what your opponents are doing, not on what you're doing. This also prevents it from necessarily getting ahead, but more as a way to just keep you caught up. It's a very interesting take on white card advantage. I'm excited to kind of see how it plays out going forward, but it's definitely a step in the right direction here. And this was a big plus to those mono white decks out there for really finally getting away to like rampant stuff. Coming in at number 3, we have Thieving Skydiver from Zendikar Rising. Fast mana is one of the harder things to overcome in EDH, especially if one particular player has a bunch of it and you got none of it. Thieving Skydiver is an incredibly mana efficient way to turn the tables on those particular players. No longer are they getting out to these explosive starts that you can't interact with, leading to these non-games where they just kind of wrap everything up due to the overwhelming resources. Suddenly, for a single mana kicker, you're stealing their Mox Diamond, you're stealing their Mana Crypt, you're stealing their Soul Ring. Suddenly you are the one with all the fast mana. Now, while this doesn't solve the problem of there being a player with fast mana at the table, this does prevent individual players from just stacking their decks with all the super mana efficient mana rocks with no worry that somebody's not going to go out there and use their own rocks against them. This is an incredibly efficient way to handle those situations. They allow tables to start regulating themselves when it comes to these mana rocks. And when people are out there playing $150 mana crypts being stolen by this couple dollar Thieving Skydiver, suddenly it's no longer as much of a pay-to-win format. Coming in at number 2, we have Wheel of Misfortune from Commander Legends. The original Wheel of Fortune is an incredibly powerful magic card, and I have never not felt good when I cast it. That said, it's also a very expensive magic card, like $170 plus, because it's on the reserve list, and it will never be reprinted again. we've had other cards kind of try to fill the role of Wheel of Fortune. You had Magus of the Wheel, which requires you to get through a turn cycle before you can use it. And you have Reforge the Soul, which is more mana intensive unless you manage to get it for its miracle cost. But I believe Wheel of Misfortune is the best Wheel of Fortune replacement thing that they've printed so far. It allows you to get your new hand. It allows people who want to keep their hand to keep their hand. It allows you to mess with everybody else if you know how to play your numbers. I have a soft spot for like these mini games that you can play during Magic. Except for Shazrad. That one could probably stay on the ban list for other reasons. So I really love the mind game aspect of this card. But I will concede, it's not the most intuitive card out there. In fact, this card for the longest time during my script writing, I had pegged for number 1 outright because I just absolutely love this card. But after having played with it a couple times, people can get easily confused if they haven't encountered this card before because it's definitely kind of odd and very wordy. Once they get the hang of it, sure, they're fine from there and they're playing it like a champ. But because it's not the most intuitive card out there, I could not give it the number 1 spot. Now, before we get to this number 1 spot, I do have we'll call them honorable mentions, but these are the needed first-time reprints to come out of 2020. These are cards that had never been reprinted before this year, and finally got their chance to shine. We start with Oubliette. $25 from Arabian Nights, down to a single dollar, if that you can get after its reprinting in Double Masters. Idyllic Tutor was a $36 tutor effect for enchantments originally out of Morningtide, reprinted in Theros Beyond Death, now able to be gotten for $3. Ugin the Spirit Dragon, originally from Fate Reforged, was approaching $60. But with its reprint in M21, you can get copies for $18. Grim Tutor. This thing was from Starter 1999. This thing was pushing $200. But with its reprint in M21, you can get copies for $11. But that's not even the biggest one from this year. Free Visit. Originally from Portal 3 Kingdom, this card was pushing $210 before it was printed as an uncommon in Commander Legends and is now accessible for a simple $3. These are great reprints, and that is a beautiful thing to see. Reprints are good. Print more of them for expensive cards, Wizards. And now that these cards are reprinted, you might be apt to go pick up a couple for some of your Commander decks. If that is the case, we got a TCG Player affiliate link. Feel free to use it to pick up those cards. It won't cost you a single cent more, but it will help out the channel. All those out of the way, let's get to number 1. All right. I got one more thing to say before I get to the number 1 pick. You guys have made it this far. I'm clearly doing something to keep your interest. Consider hitting that subscribe button to join us going forward. I'd love for you folks to hang out with us and be a part of the community. That said, let's get to the true number 1 of 2020, Slash the Ranks from Commander Legends. Planeswalkers have notoriously been one of the more difficult permanent types to deal with because they often would require multiple resources to handle a single one of them, while also generating value for their controller while they're trying to be handled, creating this very large discrepancy in resources being used. And that's just for one. If a person has multiple Planeswalkers out, it can get really out of hand really fast. And this is one of probably, if not the most efficient way to handle multiple Planeswalkers at once. And it's not so niche that it only handles Planeswalkers. Oh no, it's also a regular board clear stapled on. So any non-commander Planeswalker or creature gets destroyed all at once. So it'll fit in a meta where it's just people casting creatures. It'll fit in a meta where you got Atraxa Super Friends playing off in the corner. And it will be a reasonable answer no matter where you end up going because it will always take care of the problems. And, you know, This has quickly joined the ranks of cards like Cleansing Nova and Austere Command for me when it comes to mono-white utility board clears. Super Friend players, look out. We finally have a way to come and get you. So that's the list. Did you agree with it? If not, come join us in my Discord. It's open to everybody. I'd love to talk to you, hear your side and your choices for your top 10 of 2020. We also have a nice deck building section. So if you want mine or my friend's deck building advices when it comes to building your decks, definitely feel free to stop by. And we even got a section for memes. There's like 2 memes in there right now. I really need a good meme dosage. So if you want to head to the Discord, the link's in the description below. Dump some memes in the meme page. Ask for deck building advice. Just swing by to say hi. I'd love for you folks to join us. Now that 2021 is upon us, let's start moving things in the right direction. I'm looking forward to the year. Let's make it a good one. Why don't we all just do it together? Thank you very much for joining me today. I'll see you guys soon.